Welcome to I Am Your Target Demographic, and today we're discussing the third most popular religion in the world, Hinduism. This is intended to be a brief and superficial explanation, not for Hindus, but rather for the curious who don't know much. I'm going to do my best to simplify and explain their core beliefs so that viewers can understand the basics. Let me begin with a huge disclaimer. Religions that are this large and contain so many denominations or schools of thought get very complicated to explain. Some of the things I explain may not apply to every type of Hinduism. Some schools of thought are outright opposite from each other. So if you know of a certain division of Hinduism that you want to learn about, I'd recommend searching for that next, to get the specifics from that tradition. So before you jump to the comments to correct me on something, I'm acknowledging that some pieces of this may not apply to every sect of Hinduism, and I know that. Because of this, in some circles, Hinduism is called a family or group of religions as opposed to one single religion. The Supreme Court of India had this to say: unlike any other religion in the world, the Hindu religion does not claim any one prophet. It does not worship any one god. It does not believe any one philosophic concept. It does not follow any one act of religious rites or performances. In fact, it does not satisfy the traditional features of a religion or creed. It is a way of life and nothing more. So knowing that there is a huge diversity of thought and belief, let's try to discuss what some of them believe. Many traditions of Hinduism follow sacred literature called Vedas, which are lessons based on an ancient cultural heritage. Some might follow these lessons closely, while others are not as adherent to what these texts discuss. It has evolved over time, and the beliefs of many Hindus shifted from this literature into more practical beliefs, based on smaller and local communities. There are also post-Vedic scriptures that other branches of Hinduism may include, so it's not always just that one source of literature. The Vedas cover a lot about their cultures, such as how certain rituals are done, how to meditate, and even sometimes how to worship. Traditionally, the Vedas have been orally transmitted for thousands of years, memorized and recited, considered sacred and not coming from man. While Hinduism is believed to be over 5,000 years old, and some even say it's timeless, these lessons were believed to be finally transcribed between 1500 and 500 BCE. Some subgroups of Hindus contest the actual writing down of these verses and have even explicitly forbidden writing them down. While it's the most prominent religion in India, it has also become significant in countries like Nepal, Indonesia, and many other countries all across the world. Overall, Hinduism has about 1.2 billion followers, about 15% of the world's population. Let's try to define the primary deity that Hindus worship. It's not as simple as monotheistic religions, as there are 33 deities referenced in the Vedas, and they each have multiple incarnations. In other texts, this number increases to hundreds. They might have multiple names, appearances, some might be conflated or combined over the years. It gets extremely confusing to try to figure out an exhaustive list. Most Hindus believe that all of these gods are ultimately a form of what's called Brahman, the ultimate reality, the singular supreme idea of God. So different belief sets under Hinduism might worship a different deity as the incarnation of this supreme God. They are all incarnations of the same supreme being. At least most Hindu traditions believe so. In contemporary Hinduism, there are three prominent gods that are called the Trimurti, and are some of the most common deities that you'll see. The god Brahma is the god of creation, who is given the Vedas and initiated creation of this mortal world. He was given the Vedas by the god of preservation, Vishnu. Vishnu is most commonly believed to be entangled in the affairs of mortal kind, so there's many Hindus that may worship Vishnu as the supreme deity. The third in the Trimurti is Shiva, the god of destruction, though he is often seen as both fearsome and benevolent. While Brahma may be credited with creation, he has nowhere the popularity of followers compared to Vishnu and Shiva, each of who have substantial sects that see them as the supreme deity. While most deities may appear as variations of human, there are others such as the elephant-headed god Ganesh and the king of the birds Garuda, often serving as the mount of Vishnu. Across this pantheon of deities, they tend to be assigned to qualities, such as Ganesh being the god of removing obstacles and invoking good luck. Many of these gods are revered as the primary supreme deity in their own dedicated traditions, with Vishnu and Shiva being the most popular. Hindus believe that the divine can take any form it wishes, so it can be male and female, a combination of both, or even these fully animal or hybrid appearances. Aside from the gods they worship, what else do they believe? The primary goal in most forms of Hinduism is what's called Dharma. This is essentially the right way of living, including your religious duties and the right sort of social conduct. It is playing your role in the cosmos to sustain harmony in the world. Many Hindus also believe in the idea of reincarnation, called Samsara. This is a later development as the older Vedic texts talk about ideas similar to heaven and hell, though this is later called too simplistic and the idea of samsara is introduced. Your good deeds in this life may mean a more prosperous future life, the idea of karma. Again, most Hindu traditions define samsara differently, and there are varying logistics of how this rebirth works. But the common goal is to break this cycle with what's called moksha, becoming liberated from your sorrow and suffering. When the self, called the Atman, finally achieves moksha, it's believed that their Atman becomes one with the Brahman, the ultimate reality and supreme cosmic consciousness. Some traditions think this break happens after death, before rebirth happens, while others believe that this break can happen during a lifetime, more of a psychological concept. In daily practice, Hinduism is somewhat unique in that religious practices and meditation don't have to occur in any sort of shared space. Their rituals and practices can be held anywhere, including in their own homes. There are temples, yes, but these are places of worship and pilgrimage that Hindus can visit to perform rituals, but it's not a necessity for worship. As a non-Hindu, you may also be familiar with the concept of the cow being a sacred animal to Hindus. In the Vedic texts, it specifically outlines cattle as sacred, and even more generally, most living animals. Vegetarianism has become a prominent side effect of this, with India having more vegetarians than the rest of the world combined. The root of this comes from themes of anti-violence from the Vedas, and the butchering of cattle is pretty severe violence in their eyes. Cows specifically are referenced in many stories in Hindu texts, including deities that appear in the form of cattle. Non-Hindu audiences are also likely familiar with the concept of yoga. While it's obviously become pretty mainstream, its roots are indeed in Hinduism. Yoga is based in Hindu philosophy, focusing on how to become disciplined, including your pose and posture, but also correlating to your concentration and meditation. While originating in Hinduism, its lessons are available to anyone regardless of religious affiliation. It would take many more hours to really dive in depth into the variety of Hindu traditions and the expansive roster of deities and incarnations. But hopefully this brief and superficial overview helped you understand a bit about the religion and what Hindus believe in. This was one of the most complex religions I've attempted to cover, so know that a lot of things were likely not included or oversimplified for this audience that are looking to get a first exposure to what the religion believes. Let me know in the comments if you found this interesting, and what other religions or belief sets you'd like to see explained. Thanks for watching.